Welcome to the official second episode of the Banquet Hall podcast. For those of y'all who tune into Natural Nonsense, y'all recognize the voice maybe, but I am joined by the one, the only, the Hyphy Doc. Cameron, welcome to the mic.
What's good, brother? It's nice to be on. You're doing your thing, all your pods. I'm like, this dude Kyler just about to have like 10 podcasts by next year. I'm like, God damn.
Hey, I'm trying to start a media empire over here. Before Cam and I started recording, I was just talking about I get tired of hearing about Kanye and Kyrie. It's time to talk about Kyler. We we
Yeah.
we are here. It was also funny before we started recording because as I was preparing for this podcast, I was like, you know what, Cameron gonna come on this camera. He gonna have on. I thought she's gonna have on a Steph Curry jersey, have like
It's
the
too cold
Warriors
right now.
trophy in the background. I was ready. I was like, you know what? Let me find the Lakers background. Let me put on the Lakers shirt. And lo and behold, you repping Oakland, you repping the Bay Area in the background.
See,
You
because
was ready.
I knew you was gonna have some Lakers stuff, and I was like, because we get into it, we'll talk about all that, Lakers Warriors stuff. But I was like, I know this dude Kyler about to come on with some type of purple and gold, so I'm like, all right, I can't just let him dominate like that. I got to keep some balance.
Yeah, I was prepared though. I was prepared. I was like, we might be going to war on the podcast, like very passive aggressively. I mess around, pull out a trophy, you pull out a trophy, we pull out jerseys, and we be lit.
It's all good. Hey, we got 3 wins to y'all too, so not that that's saying much, but
Woo, we gonna get there. This is why I wanted to have you on the podcast early because both the Lakers and the Warriors are struggling.
it's rough out here.
But we gonna get to the Warriors in a second. But first, I want to
Yeah.
just talk about like your love for the Bay Area. Like I think one of the things that I knew coming into college, like being at UCSD, once I met y'all folks from the Bay, I was like, oh, y'all love being from the Bay Area. Like it is part of y'all's identity. And I respect it fully. Like, and so I just wanted to hear from the Hyphy Doc himself. How does it feel like representing the Bay Area, being from the Bay Area? What does that mean to you?
Man, so like you said, I'm very prideful of being from the Bay, and I don't feel like that really came out of me until I left, because you from where you're from, and you don't like people in the Bay don't really like talk about being from the Bay, but it's like once I left that bubble, and I really did feel like the Bay is like a bubble. It was very apparent that the people are different, and I don't know. For me, I feel like a lot of the people in the Bay Area are just like some of the most chill, down to earth people, always down to have some fun, just trying to live life to the fullest. I grew up in like the hyphy movement era. Listen to Pack and Too Short and all these like artists. And yeah, man, I don't know. I just feel like the culture is very vibrant. The diversity is crazy. When I got to UC San Diego, it was like, man, I'm used to seeing, I got homies of like all different like nations and ethnicities and immigrants, people from different
Mm-hmm.
countries. Like that was the norm for me, you know? And that's kind of like what I grew up seeing around the Bay Area. Like I'm Black and Filipino, like, my dad's Black, mom's Black and Filipino, and all of my cousins are mixed. So I think just that diversity, the fun, the energy that
Mm-hmm.
Bay Area people I feel like bring, is second to none. And of course I'm biased, but I don't know. We live in that hypey lifestyle, just trying to bring energy and life and live life to the fullest in like everything that we do. And also like we didn't have no ethnic studies classes, we didn't have no sociology classes growing up. But everyone in the Bay is like pretty in tune with just how to treat people. Like granted, everywhere in America is got problems, got
Yeah.
problematic people, and I'm not saying the Bay is perfect, but I don't know. In general, I didn't really grow up around racism. I didn't really grow up around a lot of stuff like that. So I don't know. And I think that just fit my identity like very well. So, I got my little Bay Area thing. I actually bought this when I was in San Diego.
Mm.
And I always had it like in my room and in my dorms because I don't know, it just made me feel at home. So yeah, I love the Bay. Glad to be back closer because I'm in SAC right now, but it's not too far. And yeah, I was gone for 7 years, bro. So 7
Dang.
years being out town, it really makes you like appreciate. And I didn't just have access to just like, like I can just drive back to LA or something like that. Like if I'm gonna drive back to the Bay, it's like 8 hours. So I had to find ways to really like embrace, being from the Bay. And I don't know. I just enjoy it. And when I met people when outside, I'm like,
Hmm.
it's very like easy to connect with people. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
are you from the Bay? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I had a feeling, Or people would ask me like, are you from the Bay? I'm like, how did you know? They're like, oh, Bay people are different. I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't know.
Y'all
Bay
are a little
Area all day.
different. Y'all a little
We
different.
are, we
It's
are.
not a bad thing though. Like I think
Not at
that's something to be
all.
proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
y'all should definitely be proud of that. And not to put you on the spot, but I have this debate with a lot of people who claim to be from the Bay or different parts of the Bay. So I want you to give on this podcast what constitutes the Bay Area? Like how far south we going, how far north we going? Because I have some friends from certain cities, and I'm not going to bias your answer. I'll give the cities later, but they're from certain cities. Be like, no, that's the Bay. And me being from LA, I'm like, nah, I wouldn't consider that the Bay because I know a lot of people from the Bay Area. So what do you define as the Bay Area?
what do I define? I feel like even people out here, it's always like a topic of discussion. Me being from Hayward, so I'm from Hayward, California.
Mm-hmm.
It literally is like the center of the Bay Area. I got like we got two bridges. One can go to SF. We got Oakland. We got San Jose, like all surrounded by us. So I consider Hayward to kind of be like the center, like the heart of the Bay. But in a very simplistic way that doesn't encompass everything, but in very
Yeah.
simplistic way, if you can get there by BART, then it's definitely in the Bay.
Okay.
BART takes you pretty far. You can get to like Milpitas going south. I would say like San Jose, that's kind of getting towards like your border of like to South Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the whole SF side, like
Yeah, of course.
which it's essentially like anything that's touching the Bay Area water is part of the Bay. That also goes to like, Vallejo and a lot more like Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel like that's kind of how I would describe it. I don't even know like the exact city borders, but
Yeah.
if you wanted to like know like a rough estimate, like look at the BART map
Okay.
and that'll kind of like give you like a starting place. And then, all the borders are kind of like give or take. It depends, like, I think it really depends on like the person.
Okay. So let me
You
ask
got
you,
people, yeah. So
is Santa Cruz part of the Bay Area?
no,
See, thank you. I have
no,
a friend. I have a friend who grew up in Santa Cruz, and she's like, "Santa Cruz is the Bay." I'm like, "No, it's not." And she's like,
no,
"You from LA?" I'm like, "No, I have
no.
friends from the Bay."
No disrespect to any Santa Cruz
Nah.
people, but I don't know. I feel like people from the Bay, if you ask them like that question, they're not even gonna like entertain it. They're like,
No, because that's
I'm
near
not even gonna
Monterey
ask
Bay.
it. Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but
So no shade to my homie, but I just wanted to get an opinion of somebody from the Bay Area on the podcast of where the Bay Area is and where the Bay Area isn't. But I feel like I just really relate to that because being from Los Angeles is a big ass county. So people really
mhm.
be trying to sneak into the county lines and be like, yeah, I'm from LA. And it's like, bro, it'll take you 3 hours to get to my grandma's house.
Yeah.
You not from LA.
It's tough because then people in like the borders and kind of on the outskirts, they don't really got like ain't nobody be like, yeah, I'm from Santa Cruz. Like no one's saying that. Like so it's like, and they're not gonna be like I'm like Central Valley or nothing like that. So the Bay is kind of like the closest. So I don't blame people. You kind of
Nah.
gotta associate with something, but yeah, it's just my 2 cents. I'm not the professional. So
No, of course. I just ask your opinion because you the Bay
yeah.
Area rep on the podcast. But
Yeah.
I encourage anybody just rep where you from. Like put wherever you from on the map. Like I think
Yeah.
that's what's dope. Like whether you're from Carson, Long Beach, whether you're from San Jose, Seaside, wherever you at. Like just rep
Hmm.
your city.
Yeah, be proud. They know when I went to San Diego, don't nobody know what Hayward was or where Hayward was, but I guarantee you, after my 7 years there, a lot more people know where Hayward is,
Oh,
and like, oh, he
absolutely.
from Hayward. Oh, I got a homie from Hayward.
No, literally, that's exactly what happened because in undergrad I did this Black at UCSD documentary, and I was asking all the Black students where they're from, and you were like, "Oh, I'm from Hayward, California," and I was like, "I've never even heard of Hayward, never been to Hayward." But the moment I started working for admissions and had to go to schools in Hayward, I'm like, "Oh, Cam from Hayward." Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, this city has more meaning to me, and every time I think of Hayward, you're the number one person I think of. So,
Yeah,
shout out to you for repping Hayward.
that's right.
You got to get you a Hayward hoodie though.
I grew up wearing like Hayward, Haystack, like everything, So I'm like, yeah, that's not something I feel like I gotta like rep. This is
I feel that.
my Warriors shirt. So yeah,
And
I'd
that's
rather just
that
talk about it.
and that's a good segue to talk about your sports fandom. So I promise this isn't going to be an hour-long basketball podcast, but I feel like I'm doing the people a disservice if we don't just talk a little bit about our sports fandom. As we've mentioned, I'm a Lakers fan. If y'all couldn't tell, I don't think anybody listening to this podcast couldn't tell unless you just never seen me before in your life. Uh, Cameron is a diehard Warriors fan and like
Yep.
an actual Warriors fan though, like down with the bandwagon, down with the team. Like Cameron is a certified Warriors fan. You get that certified stamp. So just in general, what does your Warriors fandom mean to you? Like what does sports like fandom mean to you? Just curious, like what are your thoughts on like just being a fan of these Oakland teams?
Um, so one thing about being from the Bay is that people really take sports like really seriously. Like we talking about we gonna have a party for a Warriors game before we have a party for a cousin's birthday. Like,
That's real.
like the family like getting together to watch a Warriors playoff game quicker than we trying to go to someone's like graduation. A lot of times like people take like basketball especially like very serious, and I'm also like a Niners fan and a Giants fan because my parents are from SF, so they raised me like that. But Warriors is kind of like it kind of brings everybody in the Bay together because we were in SF before, then we was in Oakland at Oracle, now we back in SF. So like all sports aside, like everybody's pretty much like a Warriors fan,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I come from like a basketball family. Like my dad was like very into basketball. He didn't really like get nowhere with basketball, but as far as his passion for it, that was my first love as far as the sport, playing it. And yeah, he really like instilled in me that, because when I was growing up, the Warriors was trash. Like we was
Yeah.
like down bad. Like they was like we was getting free tickets to the games because they just trying to fill the seats,
Right.
you know. And people turn it down like free tickets sometimes, But even then, like, we getting the $15-$20 tickets to sit up in the nosebleeds. I remember like being like second grade, like third grade, going to the Oracle, or at the time it was just the Coliseum, and
Mm-hmm.
going to these games. And my dad, before we can like speak in full sentences, we had like Warriors jerseys, you know. So I just feel like being a Warriors fan is really like a part of my identity because it kind of encompasses like where I'm from. It encompasses my passion for basketball, and it also encompasses my love for family because my family like bonds
Mm-hmm.
a lot over like watching Warriors games and whatnot. So yeah, I just think that Warriors blood is just deep. It's rooted in my family, and yeah, that's all I've ever known. I don't know anybody, in my fam or friends that don't go hard for the Warriors. And I'm not talking about like, oh yeah, like we watch like some games with
Nah, like they
family.
die
Like,
hard.
no, like people know all the players on the team. We know the coaches, people being critical of the front office. We watching the drafts, like all of that. So yeah, that's kind of like where that comes from. But yeah, we've come a long way, man. Like
A
when people
long,
be talking
long
about,
way.
oh, you just a bandwagoner. I just like smile. I'm like, oh, that's cute. You really don't know. Like, I'm gonna just let you go ahead and believe that because I don't gotta explain myself.
Nah, precisely. I don't think anyone could ever accuse you of being a bandwagon because I know you were rooting for Andres Beatrice as much as you root
Yeah,
for
I
Draymond
still got
Green.
my orange Beatrice little bag that I got for free at a Warriors game. That's my like bag that I take to like go hoop out here in Sac. And they'd be like, "Oh, you were like a real fan. You got Beatrice, or some people be like, "What? Who is that player?" I'm like, "Oh, y'all don't know. Y'all don't know."
Man, but I think it's just a beautiful thing when you root for a team that's been like not good at all and not really winning, and you finally get like that first playoff series win, like the We Believe
Mm-hmm.
Warriors, and then you end up getting a championship, and then you
Yeah.
end up like having the all-time winningest season. Like it's just really cool to just see your team like evolve over time. Like of
Yeah.
course I've most of my adult life the
Spoiled.
late
Spoiled. Y'all Lakers are spoiled. Y'all been
you
good for
couldn't even let me
y'all,
set it up.
man. No, I couldn't. I'm a little bitter, man.
No, I'll own that. Lakers fans, we are the most spoiled, at least in basketball. We're for sure the most spoiled.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, because when I tell you that 2 years without a championship feels like a lifetime,
Yeah,
it
it's nothing
definitely
to me.
feels like a lifetime. But you have people who are fans of teams like, I don't know, the Sacramento Kings, who they ain't even sniffed the playoffs in dozens of years. Like, yeah, we
Yeah,
spoiled, but hey, that's part of the purple and gold brand. We spoil, we
it
Los
is.
Angeles, it's Hollywood nights.
It's
Uh
Hollywood.
I love it though. I mean, hey, we you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I respect it though. You know, like I said, like you said, like you were definitely a Laker, a true Laker fan. You know what I mean? Because like you get a lot of people in Hollywood. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna like
There's a
buy a
lot of fake
jersey
Laker
real
fans.
quick for the post and celebrities and stuff. But there's a lot of like real ones too, like you like yourself, and a lot of celebrities. So yeah, I
Yeah.
got nothing but respect for the Laker fandom. Um,
I don't know about nothing but respect because Cameron, you the first person to be texting me as soon as the Lakers lost in the playoffs. Get a text message from Cameron like,
that one got nothing to do with respect. Like I was talking my shit. You
nah, no.
Kyler know he go like if the Lakers don't make playoffs or if something happens, he can just expect a text from me. I'm just like sending just some eyes emojis like,
Yep.
oh shit, what happened, bro?
Be pissing me off. I remember in
Rub
the
salt in the wound.
yeah, because I remember in the bubble, because I don't even know when's the last time I've seen you in person, but it feels like I've talked to you all the time. Because in the bubble, when the Lakers was competing, the Heat was competing, all of a sudden me, you, and Andre group chat pop off every half of play. Just Cameron sending three eyeballs, like, oh, who gonna win this game? Who
Yeah,
got the next game? Just
instigating.
instigating.
I had to keep myself entertained, man. That was a rough year for us.
Hey, I love it though. I feel like that's what I really love about sports is the playfulness that comes with the shit talking, like the camaraderie, because it's just like, yeah, like when the Warriors on TV, I'm like, oh, like I know Cam lit or I know Cam pissed off. Every time the Warriors
Mhm.
lost so far this season, I text like, you sure you don't want to trade Clay for Westbrook real quick?
Oh man, it's fun though. Like people don't get it. It's all fun. Like it brings joy like into life. Like if you ain't got a sports team to root for, like fuck it. Like just pick a team and just
Yeah,
go hard for them. It's gonna be some ups and downs, but I don't know. I love sports. It brings a lot of joy into my life. So and I
yeah.
love people that love sports as much as I love it too. So yeah.
Exactly. But like I mentioned, our sports teams are not doing well right now. So we don't got to talk too much about it because I would love to also talk mess about the Giants, but you saw what the Dodgers did.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. But I mean, the Giants did have to send an apology letter to their fans on Twitter for the way the season went.
Yeah, that was yeah. It's all good. We gonna get some nice players this offseason. I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll have a full. We should have like a sports roundtable, like just bring a bunch of different sports fans on a
I'm down. Sign
podcast.
me up.
I got you. You'll definitely get that first invitation. But I want to transition a little bit and talk about college because, of course, that's where our paths first crossed at UC San
Mhm.
Diego, as we've talked a little bit earlier. So I'm just curious, can you walk me through like how you decided to come to UCSD? Like, what was that process like for you?
I honestly didn't really know nothing about UCSD when I was
That's what
applying to
everybody say.
colleges. I like everyone knows San Diego State, but I was like, there's a UC in San Diego? Oh snap. Like, did they just open up? And I'm like, no, they've been around. I'm like, oh. And honestly, my whole thing with applying to colleges was as much as I loved Bay, none of my family, none of the people I knew has ever left.
Mm,
All my homies have all kind of like stayed. You know, it was very few of us that kind of dipped and explored somewhere else. Um, and I was just ready. I was like, man, like I'm trying to like just dip. I'm trying to go somewhere. I definitely want to stay in Cali. I don't know if I'm ready to leave Cali, but San Diego's pretty far away. I heard they got some nice weather. It's close to Mexico, so they got some bomb food.
Yeah.
And yeah, honestly, that's kind of like why I applied to San Diego schools because of just the weather. You know, I'm like, they got beaches and all this stuff. So let me just apply. I got into UCSD and San Diego State. Those are like the two best schools that I was interested in that I got into. And I went to go visit, and everyone in my family was telling me, like, why would you go to UC San Diego? Like, go to San Diego State. Like, that's where it's at. Like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I don't know. Someone's telling me that I should go to UC San Diego, and I visited both places. And I felt, I was like straight A student, like always on like honor roll, taking AP classes. You know, that one black dude in all the smart
Hey,
classes.
that was me too. That was me too.
um, yeah, and I just felt like inside was telling me like, kind of like you gotta like challenge yourself because I didn't feel like I challenged myself a lot in high school. And no one was challenging me. I was just kind of coasting. But everyone I knew, everything I knew was like San Diego State, part of school, blah, 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 blah. So I was like heck torn. And then I finally talked to like one of my big sisters, family friend, and she went to UCLA and she got a homie that went to UC San Diego. She's like, Camp, like, I'm not gonna try to sway you, but I'm gonna just tell you, you should go to UC San Diego. Like
Mhm.
it's gonna challenge you in ways that you probably will never be challenged. I have no doubt you would have the time of your life at San Diego State, but she's like, I be at UCLA and I still have the time of my life. We be at Cal State LA, like turning up.
Mhm.
You know, we go out, like just go for like the experience that is gonna challenge you the most and allow you to grow the most. And I literally like broke down trying to decide because all my
Mhm.
parents, my siblings were like, we would go to San Diego State. And I'm like, I feel like I should go to UC San Diego. And then I visited, beautiful campus, right
Mhm.
next to the beach. I
Mhm.
went during like spring break, so there wasn't really a whole lot of people there. Um, and I was just like, F it. I'm gonna just go here. I just have a feeling that I'm gonna get more out of what I'm looking for in college experience, which is just like the whole I want the whole experience. I want to be struggling academically. I want to truly be like on my own. And I want to like meet a lot of people. And UC San Diego just as a campus just felt big. It's
Yeah, it's
just like
big
its
as
own
hell.
bubble. It's hecka big, you know. They got like little forests in the middle of the campus. You can walk to the beach. It's just in a nice La Jolla area. La Jolla is a whole another story. But UC San Diego campus itself, you know, I just felt like this is kind of like what I imagined in like
Mhm.
college, you know, versus like San Diego State was a little smaller. It had the rep, but I don't know. And then I ended up choosing UC San Diego, and the rest is history. I'm so glad I made that choice because, you know, I met people like you. I grew. I was like shocked, culture shock. I was sad. I was like, I went through it like in so many different ways, but it led me to where I am now. So I have no complaints. And, you know, yeah, everything worked out.
Hey, that's real. That's really real. I'm admission's probably going to try to buy that little segment off of me for how you're just talking about UCSD.
No, I feel
But
like I have issues. I'm just playing. I'm just
not you saying that about my old job. No.
playing.
But I think that story really resonates with me, and I think it's a story a lot of Black students share, where it was like you've opened a UC app, you're like, all right, let's see, like I know UCLA, UC Berkeley. It's like, wait, San Diego. Then you start doing some
Hmm.
research. It's like, well, I could be in San Diego because that's what happened to me. I'm like, yeah, why not just throw to San Diego? One out there, San Diego's a cool city, and then like you said, I visited the campus and it was like, oh, like that's the ocean looking like that. Like I could just be here for 4 years with the ocean just looking like that. I could catch the
Like,
sunset every
bro,
day. I felt baller being in La Jolla. Nah,
yeah.
that's really real. And let the folks know, what did you study at UCSD?
So I came in as a physiology slash neuroscience major. I kept that major, but in my third year, I had a ethnic studies minor and I
Mm,
made it a double major. So I picked up ethnic studies major because I was like, yeah, this pre-med, nah, it's not happening. And I'm like, I was very interested in like mentoring students, teaching. So I was like, okay, I need like a backup plan and ethnic studies. So I got a double major in physio neuro and then ethnic studies. So I got my money's worth. You feel me? I was there for
Hell yeah.
4 years. I got 2 degrees. I'm like, oh, I might as well because it's expensive and I don't have any loans. So let me just maximize this. So yeah, that's what I studied.
Yeah, that's awesome. I forgot that you've been double majoring in ethnic studies, but that's really dope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to circle back to something that you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier in the episode, but I think it's a good time to bring this out. You mentioned kind of your multiracial identities, like you're Black, Filipino, and I know at UCSD you were involved with BSU, you're involved with KP. So talk a little bit about like how your identities played a role in like your college experience and some of your like student involvement and activism.
Identity was everything for me, man. I feel like I think a big reason of why I wanted to leave the Bay is just because I felt like I didn't really like know who I was. You know, the whole cliche, like, oh, I'm going to college and figure out who I am. Like,
Yeah.
that's like dead ass, like how I was feeling, you know? Because I grew up, like I said, I was in like all the smart classes,
Hmm.
AP, honors, accelerated. I was always the only Black dude. There was literally like not until my senior year, junior, senior year, there was like one other Black dude in my classes. Um, and yeah, like as diverse as like my school was, you know, like I was on the basketball team, hung out with the Black people. For my classes, I hung out with a lot of like Filipino and like Asian
Hmm.
people. And I just never fully felt like I fit into like either one. You know, I had like my close friends and even like family members telling me that I'm not Black enough.
Hmm.
Um, like and when you don't really know a lot about identity, like that really like sticks with you, you know,
Yeah.
like, yo, like this like family member just told me that this person who's not Black is Blacker than me. Like
Yeah, that's
that really
wild.
like deeply like gets into you. And I didn't like know what to do with that, you know. And then I got like my other homies talking about like, oh Cam, like you're so cool, you're so funny, love having you around. And part of me like that didn't always like sit right with me either. Cause I'm just
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I was just like really confused in like who I was. And like I said, like I have like multi-ethnic background and it was just like a weird spot. So when I got to San Diego, it was like huge culture shock. It's like 2% Black people there, you know, ain't a whole lot of Filipino people there either. You got like a lot of international people.
Hmm.
And like my whole dorm was like mostly like international people and white people. So I didn't, it took me like a cool minute to kind of click with people, but I think when I first got on campus, one of the first people I met was my homie Emmanuel, because I was at the little orientation, like, or the little morning pancake breakfast. And I'm like trying to force myself to just be out there. And I'm literally like looking around. It's like 200 people, ain't one Black person in sight. I'm just like, bro. And then I seen out the corner of my eye, Emmanuel walking down the steps. And we had that look that it's like, oh shit, a Black person. And I was like, I looked and I was like, and he came over and we said, what's up? And then, you know, that same weekend, you know, we had the whole week zero dance and
Hmm.
whatnot. I was hooping and I was playing basketball with like some Filipino people and they was in KP on KP board. And we was like running, bro. We went like 5, 6 in a row. And so I was just chopping it up and these just cool peeps. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like I met a Filipino person. That's cool. And they're like, oh, you should come to this GBM. I'm like, what is this
What is
GBM?
a
Like, what does that
GPL?
stand? What does that stand for? And it's like, oh, it's just like a meeting. Just like come through to like CCC. I'm like, where is the
All these
CCC?
acronyms.
Yeah. So then I think after meeting these people, you know, I found the Cross Cultural Center. And then I was like, oh, this is where all folks hang out. Like,
Hmm.
I see, like, this is kind of what I'm used to. Like, you know, the diversity of this is kind of where it is, even though it's really small. Like, this is where it is. And then I just started trying to get myself involved because I just had to feel like back home. I was feeling
Yeah.
really out of place. It helped me kind of dig into my identity a lot. And Yeah, that's why I really got involved. And I feel like I got a lot more involved in KP, because, people in KP was literally constantly like reaching out to me, telling me like, hey, like you should come to this meeting, you should come to this event. I'm like, I don't know nobody. They're like, it's fine, like just come through. We got you. So those are like the first group that kind of like really, you know, tried to like bring me in. And I felt like, oh, this feels like kind of similar to like the Bay. And I think part of me, like, I wish I got a lot more involved with like BSU leadership. But again, the whole identity thing, I was just like, am I like, I literally was thinking stuff like, am I black enough to like
Mm.
be like a board member or something? Like, do I like know enough? Like, I don't know. But, and then once I kind of got over that, and everyone was like hella cool. And it took me a while, like, literally probably by my like third year and started taking ethnic studies. That's when I like really just got comfortable with who I am, the complexity of that, not really thinking about what other people think. And but then the first 2 years was rough, man. And kind of being involved with KP and BSU really kind of grounded me and centered me, let alone just trying to deal with UCSD academics as a pre-med and the toxic culture that is in itself. Being involved in these groups really just gave me some sense of purpose and some sense of community that I would not have graduated without. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
real. And for the folks who don't know, can you let them know what KP is, what KP stands for?
Oh yeah, it stands for Kaibigan Filipino. It's like the Filipino org on campus, but it's like very like I guess like kind of like family oriented. Like people
Hmm.
are really trying to like bring in like whoever, just form community. Like anybody out there who just kind of feels like outside or like left out. They're like, oh yeah, just come kick it. A lot of parties. And also like a lot of like social justice stuff, I learned a lot about my heritage that I didn't really know or learn about growing up. Um, but yeah, it was fun though.
And you were a
Yeah.
Marshall College student, right?
Yeah, bro, we was both in Marshall. I
Yeah,
remember the
you live
first time
downstairs.
yeah, I remember the first time I seen you. That was also one of my biggest regrets because there were so many times where I'm like, Cam, like just go say what's up to him. Like
Me
just
too. I
go
was
over
like, just
there.
go
Just
downstairs.
go over there. There's only like one other black person, like, but it that first year it was just tough. But yeah.
It's funny how life works. 'Cause I had that same exact feeling. It's like, dang, like why he got to be downstairs? Like they couldn't
Yeah,
have
I'm
put
like,
bro in
we
my
could have
room.
just been here. Like it would have been so much easier, but
But life always finds a way because I
yeah.
know that you were more involved with KP and I was more involved with
Mhm.
BSU, but I knew your love for community. I knew if I needed you to like come do something at high school conference or needed you to volunteer for something for BSU, you'd be right there like in an instant.
Oh yeah, I was at all of that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna be leadership, but events, I got you. Volunteer, got you. Cause yeah, cool peeps. So
Yeah, and I feel like you're one of those dudes that it's like once you like know Cam, it's like nah, like Cam cool as hell. Because I think there are some people that's like, oh, like who's Cam? I'm like, oh, you don't know Cam? Like Cam cool as hell.
yeah,
Ah, who good old UCSD, good old college
UCSD,
experiences.
man. Mm.
But I appreciate you sharing all that because I think that it's really important for folks to hear stories about like what that transition is like being like kind of like the chosen black scholar in your high school, like you're the black male in your AP classes. Then you go to a school where there's not a lot of people that look like you. And I don't know if you shared this same sentiment, but sometimes I was like, damn, am I like y'all think I'm blacker than I think I'm black? Like people scared to talk to you on Library Walk,
Oh
people
yeah,
scared to approach you. It's like, yo, like
it was a very weird dynamic. It was very weird, especially with all just the crazy shit that happened at UCSD and all the problematic stuff that we had to like deal with. Like man, I gotta tell this like one story
go
from
for it.
UC San Diego real quick. So this is my first year, right? This is probably like 2 months in. This like changed my life. Kicking it with some of the people that I lived across from because it was like in Marshall it was like the guys' dorm, girls' dorm right
Yeah.
across from each other. I vibed more with like the girls' dorm because they were just fun. Like the guys, they wasn't really trying to go to nothing. So I was like, I'm gonna be
My
across
sweet
the
neither.
hall. Yeah. So I'm like kicking it and we like walking down Library Walk and this one girl was like, Cam, like you were just like hella cool. Like you're one of like the dopest people I've met. And I'm like, oh, thank you. They're like, yeah, like you're my first black friend. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say, bro. I was like, yeah, okay. It fucked me up, bro. I was so confused. I still don't even like know like how to like think about that or feel about that. But that's like the type of stuff that, really just have my mind like all like just crazy. Cause I'm just like, what? What is
Yeah.
that? Like what?
It just throws you off because it's like it starts as like, oh, just a regular interaction, like, oh, I'm a cool person,
Mm-hmm.
thank you, you too. And it's like, yeah, I've never talked to a black person before. It's like, was this a social experiment? Like,
That's what I'm saying. I just feel like I don't know, bro. I'm like, am I on like this reality TV show? It's like someone like
yeah.
really tested me and they gonna come up to me and be like, "Oh, how did that make you feel?"
Right,
But nah, they
pre-TikTok.
like really just thought that. I don't know. A lot of a lot of just interactions like that just throughout like UCSD where it's just like, okay,
My
we here.
go-to, because I lived in black housing this first couple years on campus, and at the beginning of black housing, there wasn't enough black students interested in black housing to fill the beds, or really they didn't advertise it enough for black students to know to fill the beds. But that's another story. But I had an international roommate, and I remember one time we was in the kitchen. It was a holiday. I was cooking. He came in to like get some out the fridge or something, and then he stopped and walked over to me by the stove. He was like, "Hey, Kyler, happy Martin Luther King Day." I looked at him like, I was like, "What?"
Power to the people.
I was like, I really was sitting there like, was that racist? Like, I was, because
uh,
you don't just wish people happy Martin Luther King Day like that.
Yeah,
Uh
man. You
man,
see the trying experience. Gotta love it.
gotta love it. But I want to kind of finish our podcast episode talking about your journey to med school. You talked about like pursuing being pre-med. Of course, on Natural Nonsense, you refer to yourself as the Hyphy Doc, and that's how I'll always have you in my mind as the Hyphy Doc. So let's just talk a little bit about like why did you want to go pre-med? What about med school was attractive to you, and just what that process has been like.
It's a very interesting story. I always tell this to my students, but so I came in, I picked my major off of Google, right?
Mm,
Like physiology, pre-med wasn't even my first choice. It was computer science because on Google, that was the most popular major. And I
yep.
didn't know what I wanted to do. My mom was like, if you get good grades and you push yourself, you can be anything you want. You can get into any school you want. Guys, UCSD. And I'm like, now what? Well, shoot,
Yeah.
that's all we got, bro. Like, we got to figure
Figure it
this
out from
out.
here.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, let me sign up for computer science. It was impacted. My backup was physiology neuro. I'm like, okay, like I like biology, I like physiology. Doing my pre-med major, getting involved with like, volunteering, going on little excursions like Ecuador, doing all the stuff that you're supposed to do as a pre-med, right? By the time my second year ended, I was just finishing, or not even finishing, still getting through retaking like OChem, physics, and I'm just like, nah, this ain't it. Nah, I don't like science enough to just try to be like go into like
Right.
medicine, and that's when I try to transition to ethnic studies. And my goal at ethnic studies was to be like a teacher, to be a counselor, to be like working higher ed. Came to my senior year, so I kept my pre-med major because I'm like, I didn't do all these crazy classes to not finish the major. So I finished the major still. But my senior year, I had an ethnic studies year-long class and had this dope teacher, black woman, and she's like, come to my office. Everyone has to pick a research topic. So she's like, all right, Cameron, like, what are you trying to research? And I'm like, I'm not really like sure yet. Probably something in like healthcare, because
Mm-hmm.
I was pre-med, so I kind of want to see what's ethnic studies in that room.
Yeah.
She's like, well, before we talk about that, like, you're going to like med school or nursing school or something? And I'm like, nah. She's like, oh, did you drop your major? I'm like, no, I'm finishing the major. She's like, so you're finishing the major and you're not going to go into like medicine? I'm like, no. She's like, how come? I'm like, it's not really for me. She's like, that's fine, but why? I'm like, just, I don't know. She's like, well, we can sit here until you give me an answer because I'm not going to accept that. And I literally didn't have an answer for her. And she was like, Well, there you go. There's a research question. Go figure out why
Mm,
more Black students are trying to go to medicine. Like y'all are, there's so many Black pre-med medicine, like med student or pre-med students here on campus, and hardly any of y'all go into medicine.
mm.
So go figure that out. That question like changed my life, bro.
I
So
love
that
that.
whole senior year, like, this is when I start learning about the other side of medicine, the socioeconomic side, the representation side, the lack of access and disparities and all this type of stuff, which is a whole bunch of stuff that I never knew about. You know, I had like great healthcare like growing up. I never had to worry about my doctor. I was cool with my doctor. When I'm thinking back, I'm like, I had a Black doctor. Like, no
Mm,
wonder, like, I didn't ever have to think about this stuff. And I'm like learning about all this crazy stuff that go on in the world and how lack of Black doctors there are. I'm talking to like other students, sending out surveys, like, yo, like we was all pre-med. Like, why isn't only like three of us that are still thinking like medicine? And just hearing like all the stereotype that like, oh, like just all the different reasons that Black people had to think about aside from just following their passion. You know, there's just like too many barriers. Like I worked in the med school side of campus. Me and the custodians was the only Black people over there.
mm.
You know, I'm like, there's a whole pharmacy and med school here, and me and the custodians the only Black people. Like that gets into your mind without you thinking about it. I did a whole
Yeah.
like internship in a hospital in Palomar Health for 1.5 years. One single shift in 1.5 years did I see a Black doctor.
Wow.
And I worked at 3 different hospitals. Like you don't think about it, but it really like messes with you. So I'm like, okay, like now that I understand all these insecurities, now that I actually like finding something interesting in medicine, like, okay, like now I actually feel like I have a purpose. I don't just like this topic because before I'm like, yeah, I like the topic, but it just don't seem like enough to just like it to go into it because med school is crazy. But once I kind of found that passion and I found my purpose, and I'm like, oh snap, I can do this. Like, I
Yeah.
should do this. You know, like, let me be real with myself. Would I want to be a doctor? And I'm like, yeah. But I wasn't letting myself think that until I kind of got over. And I wouldn't even say got over. Like, these are still insecurities I have, but at least not let them stop me from pursuing my passion. And yeah, ironically, ethnic studies brought me back to medicine. And then I graduated and I was like, all right, I'm gonna take some gap years and try to figure this
Mm-hmm.
thing out. And I graduated because I went to South Africa for study abroad. I finished that end of 2017. So I came back beginning of 2018 and I was working at Wahupa Upward Bound, working with students. And I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, I still want to do something I'm interested in. So I still got to work with students for 2.5 years. And then 2020, end of summer, that's when I started med school. And now I'm in halfway through my third year.
You doing
So
it,
it's
man.
crazy, bro. Yeah.
You doing it. I'm so proud of you, dog. Like, I think that's part of the reason and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast, really for that exact answer you just gave, because I know what it's like, especially working in missions and seeing so many students who are like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be so and so, and just thinking about like how few role models there are out there of like
Mhm.
Black men being in these specific fields, Black women, Black trans people being in these specific fields. And I think it's so important to share and hear stories about how people navigated that and to validate some of those feelings. So I think especially working with students now, sometimes like, yeah, like I don't know what to do, I don't know who to talk to, and I'm like, hey, like I have a friend who's in med school, like do you want to go talk to my friend who's in med school, because even though they're not the doctor owning their own practice yet, they could talk to you about what that experience is like and validate some of those
Mhm.
feelings. So yeah, man, I know throughout the last couple of years we've both been in grad schools, professional schools, and whatnot.
Mhm.
So we send those text messages like, "Hey, bro, you stressed?" Like, "Yeah, I'm stressed too."
Dude,
But
grad school grinds, bro.
hey, we doing the
Whew.
grind though, and I know there's going to be people listening to this podcast that got a lot of inspiration out of what you just said. So I want to take the time to validate and affirm that, because yeah, man, you're doing it. I'm happy. I'm happy that ethnic studies helped you to come back around to med school, because I know that you're in a position where you're going to impact a lot of young people, and you already are, like just in your day to day. So I just want to take the time to give you those flowers.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you know, that's kind of like one of my main goals, like in medicine, is to just help increase the representation. And I feel like there's probably so many people that have the same underlying thought processes that I have. And I could have easily, if I didn't do this project, if I didn't have that one teacher to really challenge me and ask
Yeah.
me that question and put me on the spot, bro, I wouldn't be in medicine. I would have kind of just went away from it. And that's not to say that, like, if you're not passionate about it, like, you shouldn't be doing
Don't do it.
medicine.
No.
But if you don't even have the opportunity to figure out if you're passionate about it because of all these other things we got to think about, then that's different. And, you know, I work with students a lot still. You know, I work for this like Imani clinic and SAC. I teach, I do a whole curriculum and talk about and try to just inspire like these students. I do as many student panels as I can. Like, if anybody out there really trying to like figure out, like, are you passionate about this? It's a hefty decision, but go to as many panels as you can. Like,
Yeah.
go to talk to as many people. And anyone listen to this podcast, they got no excuse now because now you know somebody. You can easily get my email from Kyler.
Yeah.
I'm always targeting people, sending me emails, you know, especially like Black people, because that's like my whole purpose. So hit me up. Like, I got you and I feel you. And I'm not gonna be over here trying to convince you to go into medicine because that's something you got to figure out. But we need it, and I think I have a lot of experience that I can share, and a lot of just wisdom in navigating that. Because the hardest part really is getting into med school.
Hmm.
You know, it's like people when you a middle schooler, you see in college on TV, you're like, college just seems like this huge big thing. You go through the college app process, you stressed, a lot of pressure. You get in, you blink, and you graduate from college. Like, the hardest
Yeah.
part really is like getting in. And I feel like I can help people like get over that hump. So hit me up. CamClark11 at Gmail. Cam Clarkley on social media. Cam Clarkley11 actually. Hit me up. I don't care if I ain't never met you. It literally just be like, hey, I saw you on College Pod, or hey, I got your email from somebody and I'm a student and I think I may be interested or I have some questions. Like, say less. Bet I got you. You want to hop on a Zoom? You want to hop on a call? I will like always make time because these are the things that keep me going in mid school. Like, I love science, but I would much rather be talking to like someone else, you know, and
Man.
getting talking to people because it gives me energy. It allows me. So don't even think about like, oh, I don't want to waste your time. If I ain't got time, like, I'm not giving it like this.
Right.
Like, you don't gotta think about that. Like, that's not gonna be a problem. Like, I'm not gonna overexert myself, but this is something that I'm always gonna make time for, even if it's just like an email thread, you know. So, and it gives me like a lot of hope when people like reach out. So hit me up. Got you. Yeah, homies, family members, friends, mentees interested, even slightly remotely interested in medicine. Tell them hit me up. I got you. And you know, no promises, but I feel like I can provide some good insight.
Hey, that's love, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And I mean, just in you saying that, I was thinking of like three different people. Like, I got to make sure to check out this podcast episode. They're gonna have to check out the podcast episode and listen to it all the way through though to get your email. No,
Yeah, that's
no
probably
free
the best thing
advice.
that they can do. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But
I'm like, I'll respond to your email after you hit the like and subscribe button on College Podcast.
that's why you my dog. Man, I love this. Um, I had like three other questions, but you kind of answered them all in that last sentence. So I don't even think I need to answer to or ask you the three. But just in case you have anything else you wanted to add, I talked about whether or not you had any words of advice for people. What does it mean for you to be a role model to other aspiring Black students wanting to go to med school, and then how you overcome like hardships or when time gets stressed in med school. I think you covered a lot of that, but if there's anything else you want to add before we close out.
Um, I think a good piece of advice that I kind of just learned through experience, was do things that bring you joy and fulfill your passion, and it will never be a waste of time. On the flip
Mm.
side, it'll actually lead you to the things that you're supposed to be doing. And I say that because when I first decided like that I really was about to go through with this med school stuff was until I got back from South Africa. So I'm like, I didn't know nothing. I'm like, okay, first thing I gotta do is get a fancy research job. Like that's what everyone talks about. Like at UC San Diego, do some research. Man, I applied to, I wasn't really trying to do research, but I was like, that's what I
Me
felt like I
neither.
had to do, you know? I must have applied to like 30, 40 jobs, bro. And I think to this day, maybe 3 have responded to me with rejections, of course, but I didn't even hear back from majority of them. And I was feeling very inadequate. But I was like, yo, if I'm just like, I need a job, like I gotta pay my bills. And I could easily get a job at Target or something, but I was like, okay, what am I gonna do that's actually gonna like be interesting? I was like, F it.
Mm.
And someone, my homie told me, was like, Cam, just do something that you're interested in, like, and then figure out the rest later, because at least you'll like your life. So I was like, okay. And I found the Upward Bound job, and I was like, well, that's what I was gonna do initially, like mentor students. I'm like, I could be a tutor, I could be a college advisor, I can help people get into college. So I was like, let me do that. I ain't got nothing to do with medicine, but I'm gonna just do that. Man, that brought me like so much passion, so much joy. And ironically, in all my med school interviews, they didn't ask about my volunteering. They didn't ask about my abroad trips. They asked about, so you were a student advisor at a high school? Tell me about that. That's what everybody wants to learn about. And
Yeah,
the reason is because they can tell that I was passionate about it. People can tell like when you're just doing stuff just to do it. And you only
absolutely.
gonna be hurting yourself. Like there's certain things that you gotta do. Like, yeah, you need some type of hospital experience at some point to get into med school. You need to get some decent grades at some point, whether you got to retake classes at community college or whatnot. But like your life should really be dominated by the things that you enjoy and that you're passionate about, because it's too short, man. Life is too short. There's too
Way
much
too short.
just crazy stuff going on in the world to like not be like at least trying to pursue a passion. I don't care if you got to volunteer for something, like pursue that. It's gonna benefit you in some way or another. And oftentimes it'll lead you to where you want to go if you don't really know where you want to go. Like I'm over here applying to med school at the same time my students are applying to college. And I'm like telling my students, like, hey, you got to believe in yourself. Like you
Yeah.
got to do this and that. You got to work hard. You got to like make sure you study for this SAT. My students talking about, I don't see you studying for the MCAT. And I'm like, oh shit. Like,
Ooh, hit you with that mirror real
oh,
quick.
like, okay. They're like, well, are you going to med school? I'm like, I don't know. Like, we'll see. They're like, you always tell us to like be like confident. You don't seem too confident. And I'm like, damn,
Ooh.
like y'all really getting on me. But that's what I needed at that time. Like I really needed these students to kind of like give me that passion and give me that confidence, and vice versa. Like it was mutually beneficial. It was a symbiosis. You feel me? Check out the Nonsense Pod. You know what I'm saying? You'll learn a little bit
Hey,
about that. But
I was ready to plug it
yeah,
too, but you got me. I appreciate that.
I got you. But yeah, like just do things that bring you joy. Like it'll never, ever like let you down. Unless you just getting into like some hood rat stuff and you enjoy bringing harm to others. Like that's not like that. You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
You had me all inspired. Then you brought up the hood rat stuff. I was like,
Hey, it's a complex world out here.
hey, it's complex as hell, but I think Cam, I couldn't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. I think that you shared a lot of wisdom, a lot of like raw, like lovingness about like just what it means to be a black male in your field and just your journey and how it's not always perfect. And like I said, I know people are going to be inspired just by hearing your story. So I just want to thank you once again for taking the time to come to the Banquet Hall podcast.
Of
Any last
course.
words you want to leave the listeners with before I let you go?
Um, nah, I guess the last thing I'll say is y'all just like be kind. Like be
Mm.
kind to each other, and especially be kind to Kyler when the Lakers don't really do nothing this season, because it's gonna
I
be
knew it.
hard
I
on
knew it
him.
was
It's
coming. I
gonna be
knew it was
hard,
coming.
and just show him grace. Like show him patience, show him love. He's gonna need it. That's what
And
I'm trying to
if y'all don't, I'm gonna hit you with the Draymond Green 2-piece special.
do.
like the
Draymond got a lot
Warriors
of
do it.
Draymond could be a whole, street fighter with all the kicks and arms and punches and moves he got. Like he got like a whole combo that you can probably use. So yeah.
I just felt it in my soul. You was about to bring up the Lakers with your last sentence. I've been trying to be nice to the Warriors all podcast, and I was like, oh, the Lakers thing is coming, but you can't win them all. I feel like I was up 3-1 with the podcast so
See,
far.
here we go. Every time. I knew, see, man, this is why I don't feel bad because I'm
Hey, that could have been a reference to anybody. I didn't even finish the joke. But I love you, dog.
my
uh
homie, man.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Banquet Hall. As Cam said, feel free to hit him up or hit me up if you want to get in contact with him. If you know any Black students interested in pursuing a medical profession or just want to learn more about it, want to know what the experience is like, man, hit us up. This is why we do the stuff that we do. We want to make sure that we're just building a better future, and these are the faces of it, and this is why we have this podcast. So thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, follow, rate, whatever you got to do to get these numbers up, and we'll catch y'all next time.
Yep. Appreciate it.